happy Monday. It's a happy Monday as always, and the World's Quarterfinals are officially over. Welcome into Shot Callers eSports. Eric Kummel here with Matt Hempstead. Quarterfinals done, and that means the West is done.
Good night. Year. There you go.
Final Four is set, and yep, there's no Western teams, but they were close.
There could have been three, Eric.
There could have been three, but we're left with the old goose egg.
I love goose eggs.
They're actually very nutritious and high in protein, so I love them as well. But the West isn't loving it. Started before we went over that SKT Misfits series, which was a dandy. Misfits pulling out a whole bunch of different interesting picks and pushing SKT to the brink. That was what started this Western revival, the Western hype, and we haven't talked about the two weekend sets, RNG and Fnatic and Cloud9 and World Elite. So we're going to go over those games and kind of see what went wrong for some of the West teams, what went right for them, because there was a lot that went right for them.
There sure was. Even for Fnatic, not too many people were giving them a lot of credit or chance against Royal Never Give Up, but they came out firing, and their early game was one thing that kind of stood out. Broxah was always taking it to MLXG early, and then overall they did play pretty well, but it was kind of the same thing for them, for Cloud9, for Misfits. Was once they got that early lead, they struggled to close it out, and that was one thing that eventually cost them. But still, overall, these Western teams, they showed up to play in quarterfinals week. They brought some unique picks. They brought something new to the stage, and they showed that the gap isn't too big between them and these top-tier Chinese teams and even Korea.
Yeah, it was also nice to not just see a bunch of 3-0s.
That was nice.
It's kind of a theme that's kind of happened in these quarterfinals. Later on, we're also going to talk about some of the franchising in the NALCS because things are heating up there. You got the 10 teams. Got to figure it out. No idea what the rosters are going to be.
No.
It could be any combination of different things, but the teams are set. And as always, we'll be getting to your questions, so make sure you're sending those in throughout the show. But let's start with that series that was on Saturday, Fnatic, RNG, and I mean, Fnatic had a lead in both of the first two games. You could argue they maybe should have won that first game, and then really in that second game as well. But some of the turning points were MLXG with some Baron steals, specifically in that second game. Let's look at some of those. You couldn't get smites in this series.
No, smiting seemed to be an issue. In this scenario, if you're Fnatic, you have Sejuani, you have Cho'Gath with Feast, but you elect to use neither of them, and MLXG just comes in for the free steal. That should never happen at all. And then also, game 2, you see the Vayne pick.
That's a Vayne.
That's a Vayne. And the problem with Vayne is that the auto attack range isn't too great. So it's pretty tough to get in there, especially against a Maokai and a Syndra. There's not much that the Vayne can do. Probably got like 2 autos off the entire fight. Meanwhile, Uzi was bouncing around on the Tristana. And that was one thing that was weird for Fnatic in that game 2. They got out to a great start, a great lead. Broxah was attacking that bot lane of Uzi and Ming. Ming on Soraka, very exploitable, pretty easy to gank, especially once you blow that flash. You can keep going down there and attack that bot lane over and over. And that got that Reckless lane with Vayne an early lead. But the problem, as I mentioned, with this Vayne pick is it's pretty easy to just snare you with the Maokai, ulti with the Syndra, because in order to get auto attacks off, you got to get awfully close to the enemy team. And there are picks like Kog'Maw and Twitch available in that situation. He elected to go for the Vayne, which we haven't seen much this tournament.
Yeah, and if you're obviously, again, another weekness was Vayne is if you have that short range, you got to have some kind of escape. And sure, Tumble's great, but I mean, it's not actually a reliable escape mechanism going forward. So yeah, you saw in that fight, Reckless maybe got off 3 autos in the whole fight. So that's not going to help too much. Well, that's what your hypercarry is able to do. And you saw that was pretty much the closeout of the game. Caps kind of misplayed the Guardian Angel spawn there on MLXG. It had to flash over, then Uzi cleans him up. But yeah, games 1 and 2, Fnatic out to pretty substantial early leads really in both of them. And just there were massive periods of inactivity where you could go 8 minutes without a kill without them pressing forward. And when you have the gold advantage, you've got to be the team dictating what's going on in the game and pushing for more objectives. And they just didn't really do that.
No, especially in game 2, because that lead was fairly substantial. I believe they got up to 9K at one point. Yeah. And then it was that Baron steal delayed the game. And then after that, RNG just even straight up took a Baron when Fnatic was caught sleeping on it. Again, delay the game. You scale up with that Tristana, and then the range is just too much at points to deal with. Uzi's attacking from distance, hopping around, getting these kills. Reckless can't do too much on that Vayne. It was not a good pick in my opinion. It was doing okay early on. If you can get in there and do damage with Silver Bolts, it's okay, but you can get zoned out so easily, especially with the comp that RNG had. So that lead kind of fell by the wayside. And again, RNG delayed, and then you saw Uzi take over with the help of Xiaohu.
Yeah, so games 1 and 2, Fnatic get an early lead, unable to close out. Game 3, you're thinking, all right, Fnatic's blown 2 leads. This series is done. RNG gets out to an early lead. It's pretty done. But the theme is you get the early lead and you lose the game. This one came pretty much down to RNG in Fnatic's base, looking like they could close out the game. And there's a bit of a misplay by Uzi in that Fnatic base that eventually results in him dying.
Yeah, and he just takes a tower aggro and completely disrespects everything, thinks he can take it out, eats a house to the back of the head, and then down he goes. And instead of ending the game, all of a sudden Fnatic is right back in this one. And here he goes, just tanking the tower with that Morgana shield. Looks like he has more HP than he does, and gets bopped in the back of the head.
You never want to be eating a house. It's not good for you.
You don't. And then later on, this is significantly later on, Fnatic, about 30 minutes later, MLXG just kills himself with an EQ combo. And that's eventually going to let Fnatic end with not a fight, but of course so as backdooring.
Yeah, he just is immune to actually team fighting. It's 5v4. Maybe we should just close this game out, guys. No! Got to go for the epic Xpeke backdoor. Luckily for Fnatic, it does eventually work out. But yeah, it took them a while to close out that game, even when they were way back in it from that misplay from Uzi in that base. And Reckless fired up after that. I mean, people were probably thinking, I was thinking Fnatic was dead after that second game when they had given up 2 leads, but they come back in, make it 2-1 in this series, and basically in all 3 of those games, they were in it. They could have won. Could have 3-0'd them, just saying.
They could have 3-0'd him, but I mean, after they got that kill on Uzi because he was being greedy and really wanted that turret, it took them a long time, but still, with that, the Malzahar was doing a lot of good damage as well. I mean, he was kind of slept on in that series, but Malzahar, a good pick against that Galio, able to kind of tank buster that pretty busted champion. So that was a good pick. But yeah, they just kept sieging, taking inhib after inhib. I believe it took 9 inhibs that game. Just over time, they finally broke the base and then still unable to end because that Kog'Maw at the end of the game had 19 kills. 19 kills for Uzi with protection from Galio as well. That's pretty absurd. So it was a journey to get that win. They came from behind. They were able to come back because of that Uzi misplay. Still took them 30 more minutes to end, but eventually Fnatic fought back and kept that series alive.
Yeah, and going 19-2-5, I believe he finished, and losing the game, that is I'm not playing any more games for a week after a game like that. So, but again, RNG rebounds in Game 4, and again, it was another game that Fnatic was in Game 4, and you know the emphasis has always been in the bottom lane. And in Game 4, Fnatic overextended, stayed a little bit too much trying to get one of those turrets in that bottom lane, and that was the main play that kind of snowballed in the way for RNG.
Yeah, it definitely was, and you just kind of, even with the Galio, you have to respect some things like the package with the Shen combo. Corki comes in, the Galio ult misses everything since, you know, Fnatic is running the other way, and then they just get turned on. The Corki doing a lot of good damage early on with the Triforce, completed a nice early power spike from that Corki recognized by RNG, and they take full advantage in this team fight. Again, Fnatic out to a great start by attacking that bot lane, and it just kind of turned around after that one. And then after that, Uzi with a great flank. You got to watch out for him. Where's the Twitch? No one recognizes it. The Draven just traps everyone in, and then Uzi comes in afterwards to do a ton of damage. Everyone on Fnatic just running away, no one attacking. And I know you're not a big fan of this team comp from Fnatic either. Sure, they have that Galio, but late game, where's the damage coming from?
Yeah, late game, there is no damage. And especially, I mean, you really got to start snowballing with a comp like that. And you see Reckless is devastated. And he did build Guardian Angel pretty early on when you're literally the only source of damage. But yeah, that team comp can work. But you need a different AD carry than Varus. You need that Kog'Maw. That's the ideal pick in there, obviously, because we've seen with a bunch of different teams that champion can be the only source of damage, basically, for a team comp, and it can still work. We'll get to one of those comps later on that World Elite ran against Cloud9. But yeah, it doesn't work to the same degree as Varus. You don't have that max range where you can output the damage at a safe distance. This isn't the same Varus where you're just spamming Q and chunking out guys to half health. Since they nerfed that, he's based on these auto attacks, and sure, he's got slightly higher range than most guys, but it's not enough.
No, it's not. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Varus as a champion, but as a sole damage dealer, it's not the best. And yeah, Fnatic just really put all their marbles into Reckless's basket. I guess they have like baskets of marbles, but
yeah, I don't think marbles is the way you use that.
Well, that's what I used.
Do you hold marbles in a basket?
Why not?
Is that what you did as a kid?
Absolutely.
You must have gotten made fun of a lot.
Yeah, it was a rough childhood, Eric. Come on, you don't have to bring that back up.
Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, as the alone damage dealer, Reckless on Varus isn't going to cut it. Sure, they got the Galio pick, which has been time and time again a pretty strong pick, especially on these Chinese teams. They've shown if you get Jarvan Galio specifically, it's almost like an insta win. So good job to take that away, but Caps didn't look great on the Galio. And Fnatic as a team didn't play around it super well either.
Yeah, I mean, that one team fight we showed was a clear example of some miscommunication with that Galio. Everyone running this way and Galio else in there. Yeah, that's not too helpful in these team fights. So yeah, as a team, they didn't look comfortable with it. And yeah, Caps didn't look too comfortable on it. But all in all, I think Fnatic performed better in that series than most people were expecting. Yeah, it didn't go the distance to 5, but I mean, all 4 games were pretty close and maybe could have even gone either way. Maybe save for that last game. That was probably the most heavily in favor of RNG, but the first 3 games really could have gone either way.
Yeah, it definitely could have. One thing was Caps wasn't super impressive to me in this quarterfinal match, especially against a guy like Xiaohu, who all the attention is on Uzi. But Xiaohu's this guy who had the best KDA of the quarterfinals, and he's not the guy who does DPS on this team. Obviously, that's Uzi. But he just pressures the side lane so well. He played Galio, Corki, Ryze, all these guys who can come from the mid lane, from base with a package, with Ryze ultimate, with that Galio ult, and just keep pressure on the bot lane to make sure that Uzi has priority in that side lane. So that's a big thing by Xiaohu. But for Caps, he was constantly down, I believe, negative 11 CSD at 15. And then you saw a bunch of misplays. His Galio was not impressive. That Talia combo on the GA would have prevented him from flashing over, and so he had to overextend and got cut out by Uzi. So just a couple misplays that, did not help Fnatic at all. And in a series where I think Broxah performed pretty well, Cap's going to drop the ball.
Yeah, he also got manhandled in that Jace matchup against Xiaohu. He got 1v1. He was down 2 levels at one point on that Talia. So yeah, not ideal. No. But across the board, still pretty impressive from Fnatic. The fact that they got to this point after that 0-4 start still kind of blows my mind. But good for them. Good for them. Good for them. The last hope for NA, as per usual at these Worlds tournaments, is C9. They were the last quarterfinal of the day on the Sunday morning. And World Elite looked fantastic in week 2. Cloud9 limped into the knockout stage. But again, same theme as Fnatic in that this first game against World Elite, it was Cloud9 that had a lot of advantages, and it looked like they should probably win this game. Sneaky was playing fantastic, but it was actually a couple of misplays, miscues by him, not using summoners too aggressively, that were 2 of the key moments in this game that eventually cost them the game.
Yeah, it did. I mean, Sneaky got out to a great start. This team, again, they got that Caitlyn pick, which we thought would be very contested, and they used it fantastically, getting up to great starts. Jensen playing early and Soul for the first time professionally. Woo! Didn't see that pick coming, but he used it pretty well as well. Got counter ganks going the top lane, got a nice double kill early on, and it looked like C9 was going to roll to a pretty early victory, but then again, it all kind of faltered in the mid game. Yeah,
and there's this team fight around Baron that we've got here where Sneaky, it's a kind of disconjointed fight. You see how low kill this game is, by the way. It was a pretty safe start for both these guys, but World Elite starts to engage. There goes Contracts, but look how safe Sneaky is, outputting that damage on Caitlyn, which he did an insane amount in this game.
Yeah, he did a ton of damage, and it looks like C9 can still kind of fight with the low HP bars over there. And then a Chen taunt brings in C9 even further. Eventually, Sneaky flashes in, dies immediately to that Janet Tornado with Kog'Maw damage. And once again, they're going to try to turn in a 3v5. This time, Jensen gets caught out after the flash from Mystic. And Mystic doing all kinds of damage on Kog'Maw, one of the main things in this team fight. And here's another misplay where it looks like they got Mystic caught out on the Kog'Maw, but actually Kog'Maw with a 3-shot and
heal, barrier, heal, Lulu ult, all available. None of them get used on Sneaky. It ends up being that 1-for-1 trade, Mystic for Sneaky for that Caitlyn, but that's, I mean, if Sneaky stays alive in that fight, which he easily can with all those tools available that we saw, they get at least an inhibitor in that fight. They might even be able to close out that game because everyone's still healthy. It's just the fact that they had no damage left, whereas RNG still had Xiaohu on that Corki. Maybe they might win that game just because of that fight. So a bit of tough luck there that he got crit a few times in a row with not 100% crit chance on the Kog'Maw.
Yeah, he literally got hit 3 times by a Kog'Maw and died. So I don't fully blame him for not using summoners because you really don't expect that to happen with the 50% crit rate. But it did, if he had just used one summoner spell or got Lulu ulted, could have been a completely different game. But even then, Cloud9 got up to such a great start. They used that Caitlyn, they used their early laning advantage to get all 3 waves, all 3 turrets, and then they had a big gold lead, like 5k early on. But then they stalled out. Once they got those outer turrets, they had nothing else to do. Baron wasn't up yet. They already got the dragons. They'd have to push these inners and overextend to try and get them. So they stalled out, and then World Elite eventually scaled up and came back. But that's when you would be like, okay, World Elite just outscales and the game's over. But then Sneaky was doing, he set a world's record this game.
Ludicrous.
With nearly 1800 damage per minute on that Caitlyn, which is absurd. So his damage kept him in the game for way longer than it probably should have. This game was going World Elite's favor, but even then, they were one summoner spell, one ultimate away from potentially winning this game still. Instead, it's a loss for Cloud9 in game 1.
Yeah, and the theme continues of West team getting an early advantage in game 1. It looks like a game fully in their favor. They should be able to close out, and they're unable to. They go down 1-0. But unlike Fnatic, Cloud9 rebounds in game 2. They get the game 2 win off of a singed pick.
This singed.
In the top lane, as everyone predicted. And of course, Impact gonna rush Leandry's. Pretty interesting pick ban in game 2 there.
Not only did he pick it, he blind picked it, which is absurd. And then World Elite responded with a Maokai. And that is not a good matchup for Maokai. He can't do anything against that singed. He was proxying the wave, going in there with that Rylai's, with the Leandry's, going to full damage. And you saw what happened when he could flash flip a guy, especially the Kog'Maw, the Mystic.
Yeah, half health.
They just were not ready for this pick. And I mean, sometimes you didn't always see the effect, but it definitely zones someone when you have to respect the flash, flip. Also, the grounding thing is pretty good if you just can't use summoner spells on that area that he's throwing down the goo.
The goo, that's a good term for it. Especially in a Jarvan ult or something like
exactly.
that. It's pretty deadly. My main issue with Impact Singe is he wasn't spamming laugh enough. I mean, that's the secret strategy to playing Singe, is either spamming your laugh or spamming your emote, and he didn't do that enough. But
no,
it worked for him in game 2, and in game 3, why not? Yeah, bring out the Singe again.
I thought it'd be a one-time thing, but no, he brought it right back out. Blind picked it again, being like, you can't stop my Singe.
No one can stop Singe because he just runs around like a monkey, and it doesn't matter.
That's right.
You can't chase him, you can't do anything. But in that game 3, you know, the meta has been Ardent Sensor, Janna Lulu's bottom, so you're not expecting any action in these 2v2 lanes unless there's a Leona. But in game 3, there's a lot of 2v2 action, and it's Sneaky and Smoothie coming out ahead in this one. They are a meme in lane, but they're showing off some skill down here.
Yeah, World Elite goes super aggressive, and the shields and the barrier and the heal on Sneaky, insane. And then all of a sudden, that's a 2v2 kill, double kill for Tristana in a lane that they should be losing. And then again, they show off their prowess here after picking up a couple kills on a nice gank from Contracts. This Janna play is absurd. Canceling the flash in and the Q with a tornado prevents them from getting absolutely wiped. Turns it into 2 more kills for Sneaky. And after this, that Tristana's fed. He's 5-0 on that champion. And you know what Tristana does when she gets ahead and starts to get those items. It's absurd damage. So this game, I mean, mid and top were struggling a little bit. Talia was getting crashed in by that Jace. Jensen was struggling in the 1v1 situation. So the bot lane came up huge with that 2v2 kill. And pretty much snowballed that game from there. There's not much you can do when that Tristana gets ahead, especially against a Caitlyn lane that's supposed to be pushing around that Tristana.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, that play specifically, if Smoothie doesn't play that well, I mean, there's 2 killed there for Cloud9 probably. That's a totally different game if that happens. But yeah, you mentioned that Tristana, when you get ahead, it's pretty disgusting. And in quarterfinals in general, Tristana was disgusting. 12-1 record. In the quarterfinals. That's a not bad win percentage.
It's not bad.
Basically, pick Tristana, win the game. And I mean, it was not nearly that effective in group stage. It was still getting picked all over the place, but I think it had a sub 50 or hovering around a 50% win rate, and obviously totally different now in quarterfinals. So it's interesting why it's like that. Maybe just it's the better AD carries playing in quarterfinals. I don't know, but that's definitely going to be a scary pick going forward. But Cloud9 goes up 2-1.
Wow.
Which, same position as Misfits. It's scary when you go up 2-1 against some of these top-notch teams.
The worst score in the League of Legends.
Yeah.
You don't want to be up 2-1. It's devastating.
Rather be down 0-3, end the series, end the misery, you know. Yeah, so game 4, you know, poor Cloud9.
Poor Cloud9, but also amazing adaptation from World Elite. One thing was they took away the Jarvan from contracts. It's what he played the first 3 games, and he was fantastic on it. I mean, all you have to do is press R on somebody, Cataclysm, and you force at least flashes. If not, you isolate people, your AD carries, and you can just rain damage on them while they're stuck in that terrain. So great job by World Elite to take that away. And also, Mystic personally asked for the Singed ban because they just did not have an answer to this champion. They obviously didn't practice against it. I'm sure a lot of people didn't. So Mystic was like, I can't play against this. We got to get rid of it. They did, and those adaptations mid-series definitely helped World Elite out in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last 2 games in particular really came down to the draft, the pick bans coming into this one. So let's take a look at this Game 5 pick ban because Cloud9 getting a lot of flack for this one.
Yeah, and you can kind of see why. I mean, they banned Xayah and Rumble, and okay, first picking the Janna, that's standard, no problem. You trade it for the Lulu. We all know that happens. But now Cloud9, you expect them to take away the Galio because we know what this can do, especially with the Chinese teams. They're so good with that Galio pick. But they're going to take the Caitlyn away, who they used in Game 1 to get a nice early lead, but they couldn't close with it. So I was kind of worried about the Caitlyn pick, especially when you saw Mystic dominating with the Kog'Maw in this series. And then they followed that up with a Sejuani pick. And that leaves what open, Eric? What's pretty good combination?
I believe, especially with the already picked Janna, I believe a Galio and a Kog'Maw would not be too bad. It's a little absurd that those are your first 3 picks. That's just good night, nurse. Because you can't have, that's like the Triforce. That's like, it's a 3-piece Exodia to have those 3. So I get that Cloud9 maybe felt comfortable they could beat the Kog'Maw because they beat it earlier in the series, but you can't beat all 3 of them because, look, even when you catch out the Kog'Maw, it doesn't even matter. He's getting hit by everything. He's still at full health. You just got Orianna Shockwave, Sejuani ultimated. He's at full health.
Yeah, and I mean, all the Janna shields, that Galio damage reduction just helps so much. And then after that, use all your ultimates. What are you gonna do? What's left to do? You gotta run away. And eventually, it's Jensen that gets caught out. And this is the kind of thing they struggled with the entire game. Is even if they caught out Mystic, you can't kill him because of all this protection that World Elite drafted. And that's something you could have kind of prevented in that drafting phase. I mean, even if you leave up the Xayah, they first picked the Xayah, then you have to take Rakan in that situation. Maybe take Rakan, Galio, or you ban the Galio instead of the Rumble. There were a lot of options, and I do understand what happened because you just break this draft down in so many different ways. Eventually, you're going to have to give up something. Because if they first pick that Janna and then you take Galio and something else, and you leave the Lulu till later, they can ban it in that second phase. Or you get stuck with a jungler that's not the Sejuani because Jarvan was already booted out from that draft by World Elite because it was so effective for Cloud9 in this series as well. So it was just, some of these bans didn't make a ton of sense. Obviously, they were afraid of Rumble coming out of 957. They were afraid of Xayah for Mystic, even though Mystic was already dominating on Kog'Maw, so what's the difference?
I feel like you'd rather have him dominating on a Xayah than a Kog'Maw because, sure, Xayah has that untargetable ability, but I mean, I feel like you're still more likely, she still has to get closer in for a lot of these fights for you to get her down. And yeah, the Rumble, I feel like, you'd rather deal with that than a Galio. I mean, maybe they're seeing something else or they're not as comfortable with Rumble taking over these team fights with the equalizer, but Galio Kog'Maw, that's scary, man.
I mean, clearly Cloud9 thought that if you ban that Rumble out, they're just not going to have enough damage on this side of World Elite to do anything, but then even after the first pick ban phase, the Gnar into Shen was just like, okay, Shen's going to be pushed in all games. So if that Shen leaves, talk about this bot lane, then Gnar has total priority in that top lane to go wherever. And you saw him just continuously push after Cloud9 went bottom with that Shen. And it was like, even if they got a couple of kills, Gnar entered with a top turret, and then the entire game, Shen was stuck going against that Gnar, and he was just not going to win that matchup ever.
Yeah, and you saw Cloud9 had an early kill lead. They were getting a bunch of kills, but yeah, the Gnar was just sitting top, and World Elite are just like, okay, as soon as it's a mid-game team fight, our Kog'Maw is going to have 3 items, and he's got a whole comp built around him. You're not going to be able to kill him. And they even, like, that fight we showed, that's a prime start to a team fight. The Kog'Maw walks face first into a Sejuani ultimate, followed up by the Orianna Shockwave, and it doesn't matter at all. He eventually cleans up the team fight. So Cloud9 goes down in 5 games. Again, probably could have won game 2. Definitely had a chance to win this series.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a tale of different drafts. I mean, World Elite was getting picked apart in the drafting phase in the first 3 games, and then Cloud9 kind of fell apart in that respect. Also, great adaptation by World Elite to be like, you know what, contracts, you're not getting Jarvan anymore. And Singed is going to be perma banned in that second phase as well. Would have been nice to see Cloud9 maybe pick Singed in that first phase since they didn't seem to care about blind picking it. So just say, hey, we'll take this Singed and you got to deal with it. Sure, you can ban Lulu, you can ban Taric. We'll settle for a nice boring Karma support or something. But, you know, that Singed pick seems so important for Cloud9. It's what won them the 2 games. 2 wins, 2 Singed.
2 wins, 2 Singed. So that's
Kinda
got a
rough.
nice ring to
Yeah,
it.
it's not
2
bad.
Singed, 2 wins. I like that. So no Western teams in the quarterfinals. Or excuse me, the semifinals.
It was close.
This year's Worlds. It was close, but none make it there. But despite that, this might be the best performance by the Western teams at a World Championship.
It very well might. And I mean, the one comparison you can draw to maybe say it's not is back in 2015 when both Fnatic and Origin got the semis, but then they both got 3-0'd by Tigers and SK Telecom. And then if you look at who they beat Flash Wolves 3-1
Yep.
and 3-0'd EDG.
Which is impressive.
It is, sure. But in this instance, 3 teams in the quarterfinals forced 2 games 5s, and Fnatic went to 4 games against RNG in a very close series that easily could have gone to 5. So, I mean, even Cloud9 could have swept World Elite in this series. They were up in game 1. If they closed it out, it would have been a nice clean sweep. So, if you're the West, you're like, wow, this is still a good showing. They're, especially for Misfits and Cloud9, Misfits specifically, man, they pushed SKT to the limit. They showed some crazy things, some crazy adaptation. The West bringing out all kinds of weird picks. Leona, the Blitzcrank, Singed, Jensen first time early in Seoul. They were not afraid to try new things, and that's kind of a new thing from the West, is adapting, trying something new, being innovative. Something TSM never does, is be innovative.
Never.
So I was just impressed with what the West brought. They really went all out in this quarterfinal stage in an attempt to beat these top tier teams, and they were damn close.
Yeah, so the main argument against this being the best performance for Western squads in Worlds is, I mean, SKT looks the weakest they have at Worlds probably, which, again, is still at the very least going to be a top 4 team in the world, which they are, even when they're slumping, I would say. And, I mean, RNG and World Elite, they're not even the top seeds from the LPL, but, I mean, they both looked fantastic in the final weeks of the group stage, so very impressive they were competitive. The West teams were competitive against them. And, yeah, that 2015 year we mentioned, sure, SKT and the Kook Tigers were pretty amazing. They were playing at super high levels and definitely higher level for SKT than they are at this tournament. But, I mean, then they just get swept. EDG, or not EDG, Fnatic and Origin just get swept in the semifinals. It's not that close. Last year, H2K in the semifinals, not close, 3-0 sweep. Yeah, the West has gotten to the semifinals before, but it's just really been because of the luck of the draw. In these quarterfinals, they were playing actually some of the top teams. There wasn't an easy draw. They were second seeds across the board, so they had to play group winners, and they definitely put up legitimate showings, and you could make an argument that all 3 of those Western seeds had a chance to come out ahead in that series. So I think it is the best performance from Western teams at Worlds. You throw in the fact that G2 was in a group that could potentially feature the finalists from Worlds as the 2 that got out of their group, and they put up good showings against Samsung, and they beat RNG. Probably should have beat them twice. So I don't think G2 had a disappointing performance. It's pretty much only TSM and Immortals who had disappointing performances.
Exactly. 4 of the 6 Western teams, I would say, looked pretty damn good. I mean, TSM's the only one where you can be like, they probably should have done a lot better. And even teams were saying, you know what, almost all these Western teams perform better on stage than in scrims, except for TSM. So I don't know if that's a shot at them or maybe saying they look better in scrims and then can't perform on stage. Again, we know sometimes Doublelift has these anxious moments on stage that results in bad play. And TSM just not as proactive as they are in these scrims, whereas all these other teams kind of channel it and say, you know what, this is it. Let's go for it. And they definitely did. Again, these strange picks. So yeah, you mentioned G2. I don't think you can say they had a disappointing performance because RNG and Samsung, 2 of the group members, sitting in the semifinals. Samsung coming off a 3-0 against Longzhu, and RNG, one of the nicer looking teams this tournament. So they kind of got unlucky in that group stage draw. But yeah, if you're the West, you got to be like, all right, sure, no one's in the semis, but what more could you ask for in that quarterfinal stage? Some of the best series I've ever seen.
Absolutely, and anytime you're not just getting 3-0'd, it's amazing.
It's a plus.
Now, you can say the gap is slowly closing between the East and West, but the only problem is, I mean, you had about as good a draw and worlds as you were going to hope for here, with 2 Korean teams meeting in the quarterfinals, Longju getting upset, SKT looking as weak as they have in a couple seasons now. So you're not going to get that kind of perfect storm again going forwards at Worlds to actually make some noise. But maybe the competition, this whole franchising thing, maybe that ups the competition and the gap will continue to close. But you got to think Korea's going to look better at next Worlds.
I mean, you'd probably think so. The only problem is you don't know what rosters are going to come together in North America. It could be another LMQ situation where you're sending a team that's not so North American.
Bring Faker over.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens. But I'd still like to see more international tournaments because it's probably about 6 or 7 months till the next one at MSI, which is
All-Stars.
Which is that does not count.
All-Stars.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great international tournament. But I mean, if you want the gap to close, you need to face these teams more often. And twice a year is probably not going to cut it. So that's kind of tough. Because instead of facing SKT and scrimming against Edward Gaming, you get to scrim against Echo Fox and Team Liquid and face those guys in best of ones week in, week out. So it's not the same level of competition, which definitely hurts any chance of NA EU catching up to what they're doing in Korea and China.
Yeah, and I mentioned Korea looks weaker at this tournament, but I mean, SKT and Samsung could 3-0 the semifinals.
Yeah,
so.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Maybe then they're not that weak, but we'll see.
Sandbagging.
We'll see. They're sandbagging. That's a good meme. That's a good meme. It's a fresh meme. We will get to your questions in a little bit, so make sure you continue to send those in. But before we get there, we talked about the LCS franchising. We alluded to it. It is getting wild. We've got the 10 teams that are set. 3 NBA teams are not only invested, but they have their own spot. It's their team. It's not like they're backing CLG or TSM. They have their own spot in the league. 30% of the NALCS is part of the NBA.
That's why it's now called the NBA LCS.
Yes.
That is a legitimate change to the title of
E-basketball.
E-basketball.
Ever played E-basketball? It's very fun.
It's called NBA 2K?
That's right.
Okay. Or E-basketball.
E-basketball.
It's very catchy. But yeah, I mean, you look at the teams that got in. There's 6 returning guys. TSM, C9, CLG, Team Liquid, Echo Fox, and obviously FlyQuest. And then you got the Cleveland Cavs, Golden State Warriors, Houston Rockets all in, joined by North American organization Optic Gaming. The Green Wall is joining the NALCS as well. So, I mean, 6 returning, 4 new, Immortals gone, along with Phoenix, One, Dignitas, Envy. So there's a lot of free agents out there, too. This is going to be a crazy offseason whenever they finally let these teams start signing players, getting their rosters together, getting their challenger rosters together. You told me earlier that means there's 100 players now
100
in the NALCS. There's no way there's that much talent in North America. So there's going to be guys coming in from all over the place. Attention, Levi.
Levi, come on down. I think every team is going to have 2 imports.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be a lot of 17-year-old kids who have just turned 17 that they've been scouting in solo queue, either on these academy teams or for some teams on the main roster, just because they need, that homegrown talent, because you can only have 2 imports.
Right.
So, I mean, it's hard to say with what these rosters are actually going to be. We are, in the near future, at the end of Worlds, we're going to compile a nice list of all these potential free agents and kind of go over them, because there's a lot of pretty big names out there. So we'll have to break down all those. But I mean, even you look at the franchises that are already there, like Team Liquid, they can't put out that same roster again.
No, there's no way. There's no way you can just send out that same roster, especially you have Dardoch and Reynolds on the team.
No.
I mean, especially now with the Challenger thing, there's going to be 5 guys on that under roster as well, and you have to stick one of those 2 guys down there. They're not going to be thrilled about that. That's for damn sure. So, again, just because you're on a roster right now doesn't mean you're going to be on that same roster come the spring split 2018, especially when you get a phone call from, say, the Golden State Warriors saying, hey, you want a lot of money to come play for the Warriors? Yes, obviously.
I like money.
I could play on FlyQuest, or I can go to the Warriors or the Cavs and get courtside seats to every Warriors game that exists.
FlyQuest, you get courtside seats to LCS games. You get stage side seats. Ooh.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That sounds pretty good. I mean, even a team like TSM, their roster, good chance it's going to be different. At least one or two guys, maybe, depending on what Double's future is. Sven Skaren seems to be the scapegoat for a lot of stuff, as per usual. Maybe he's out. Even these storied NA franchises, they're not coming back with the exact same roster, I don't think. CLG got a lot of question marks around their jungler. There's going to be a lot up in the air.
Yeah, and then you hear stories like maybe Longzhu's going to fall apart. And you hear Praying Gorilla might not be on that team anymore.
Down.
It's like, especially now with any LCS franchising, there's so much money to be had in North America. And you can be the star of your team, you can be the star of everything North American LCS. It's pretty attractive if you're some of these Korean players, some of these Chinese guys, even guys like Levi. There's so much jungle talent out there now. And teams like TSM, sure, Sven Skaren's a scapegoat, but it's just a straight upgrade to get a guy like Levi. Or experiment with a guy like Mike Young. It might be enticing for a team like that. So there's going to be a lot of changes coming in a couple weeks, hopefully. And we'll let you all know. Maybe we'll make a top 20 free agent list of 2017 or something.
It wouldn't be so bad. Yeah, we don't know officially when teams can actually start contacting players about joining their rosters. I imagine it's got to be almost immediately after Worlds ends, which will be in a couple weeks. So there's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be a very extended free agency period. I mean, spring split starts, what did we say? Started July, or not July, January?
It's a pretty big gap.
It's a really long off season, man.
Yeah,
really
enjoy your 6-month vacation, everybody.
Spring is July, everyone knows that.
Yes.
January.
Late January, I believe.
Late January, which also not so springy.
No, it's a little,
Very,
some people
very
call it
wintry,
winter.
like the peak of winter.
Yeah.
Should be called the winter split, but
it's kind of catchy too.
Yeah, it's not bad.
No.
But yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
It's exciting. Get ready for some spicy stuff.
A lot of spicy stuff, and we will be breaking down all that action as it comes and goes. But we still got a Worlds tournament that's going on. And we'll be looking at those semi-final matchups, Sans Western teams, on Wednesday, 2 p.m.
Yeah, Sans Western team.
Sans Western team. You know what Sans means, right?
Yes, thank you.
You got that?
I do.
Time for questions as Matt pulls them up here. Because we can't get out of here without doing questions.
No, it's question time, so shoot them our direction, and we'll answer.
Don't encourage shooting, but, you know.
Sorry, you know. Just press enter when you type it in the box.
Press enter. Or return, whatever you prefer.
It's
Some
definitely
like
enter.
Return. I don't know. I've met people who like return.
I hate you.
Yeah.
Question from Bakilla.
Okay.
Do you think Fnatic could have won the series if they took a game 2? Could they take a potential game 5?
I mean, I'd still lean heavily towards RNG in that 5th game, but I mean, Fnatic played close pretty much every game. I don't see why they wouldn't in a decisive 5th game. And when the games are that close, it is basically one team fight that can decide the entire game. Someone forgets to flash, or flashes too aggressively, doesn't use an ultimate before they get popped. You've seen that happen plenty of times. So I think they definitely could have taken 5th game if it got there.
It would definitely be intriguing to see 3 straight Western series go to 5 games. That would have been something special, especially when they all lost in game 5. It would have been extra special.
A little rough.
I mean, sure they could have, but I still think RNG would have taken home that game 5. They just had so much momentum after that game 4 win as well. That was one of their cleaner games. But with Reckless just playing Vayne and not going to that Kog'Maw high tier pick like that, it's kind of easier for RNG to get these better drafts, and Xiaohu's being more willing to go to that bot lane, just better at playing around the bot side and get Uzi those kills. I mean, it's surprising that they lost that game when Uzi had 19 kills, but that was also because of one misplay by Uzi, which I guess is a possibility that could happen again in game 5, because that is kind of the bane of Uzi's existence is, man, the guy's good, but he can also make a bonehead play every now and then.
Yeah, I'd probably go like 70-30 in favor of RNG in the 5th game or something like that, but boy, those games were exciting.
Yes. Yes, sir. Gravity, why did C9 leave Cog and Galio open in that last game, Eric? Oversight? There's no way they were just like, let's give them Cog, Galio, and Janna. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, maybe they just thought they wouldn't have enough damage if you give them the Galio, ban out the Rumble, then you can just kind of outscale into the late game when the Galio is not as important. But then you just can't kill Kog'Maw with the comp they had. So.
Yeah, I think the main thing is they felt like they could deal with the Kog'Maw because they showed earlier in the series they kind of could. Because they should have won game 1 when he was on it, and they won game, I forget if it was 3 or 4 that he was on it, and they won that as well. So they didn't have to face that trifecta. And the fact that they got Janna as well was just unbelievably painful. And I mean, even though they were able to take down that Kog'Maw, Mystic looked extremely comfortable on that champion. I know Xayah is one of his most played champions, and they were worried about him playing that as well, but I mean, make him show that maybe. I think I'd rather deal with him on that Xayah, even if he's super comfortable on it, as opposed to that Kog'Maw, because he looks super comfortable on that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only reserve they had with the Xayah was that would literally force them to take the Rakan pick, and then RNG can then answer with an Ardent Sensor support, like the Janna, like the Lulu, and you're stuck with that Rakan. But at least it's some engage, something you can use to catch out that Xayah potentially. But obviously they didn't want that. They were preferred to ban the Xayah out and just hand over the Galio. So, I mean, they had to give up something regardless, but maybe that was not the thing to
A little too much to give up.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean...
It's tough, man. That clock, I'm sure, goes down pretty quickly for your timer when you're thinking about all the different possibilities. We pick this, they pick that, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, I sat down for a long while today to try to figure some of this stuff out.
Hours.
And I still didn't really get a grasp of it. So they have like 40 seconds to get it done.
Yeah, in a game 5.
In a high-pressure situation.
Very high-pressure situation. So it's tough.
It is tough. But yeah, the Kog'Maw was... And Seth Vince says, do you think that Samsung should ban out Mystic's Kog'Maw next week to force him onto a different champion? I mean, yeah, it's partly the Kog'Maw, but it's also the comp you draft around that Kog'Maw, because there was a game where RNG, they put Ming on the Morgana, and it's just not the same with the Kog'Maw. Sure, you have Black Shield, but it's not Janna, it's not Lulu, it's not as much protection, and that was a game that RNG ended up losing.
Kog'Maw looked pretty good in that game, though.
Yeah, no, for sure. And this Kog'Maw is definitely a force, because if you don't get to that Kog'Maw, the damage coming out is ridiculous, especially once that Rage Blade gets max stacks. The damage gets pumped out on that Runand, and it's you die pretty quick, even if you're a tank. So apparently Kog'Maw's not the high priority ban. Teams prefer to ban out the Kalista, which we have not seen yet to this tournament because it's banned every game.
Which is one of the great anomalies of this entire tournament.
Yeah.
Is that champion is permanently banned every game, and no one has even played it. I would just let it through one game. It's a 5-game series. Let it through once and be like, okay, is this thing actually broken? Yeah. And you're either like, wow, that is not that scary. We've been wasting a ban for a while. Or you get steamrolled by it and you're like, oh, that's why you ban it. Okay, we learned, boys.
Yeah, never again.
But I feel like Samsung will ban other things before the Kog'Maw, like that Galio and the Janna, and kind of see how it goes. If they feel like it becomes an issue, then maybe they ban it in later games. But I don't think they're going to go into game 1 and first ban Kog'Maw.
Yeah, and this ban phase in this tournament is so tricky because so many are like mandatory.
There's like almost 8 picks that are like, if someone gets these, whoa, man, don't let them get more than like 2 of those picks.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna ban Janna, you also have to ban Lulu. Otherwise, the blue side first picks one, and then you're left without one of those high tier Ardent Sensor supports, and you're in trouble. The Xayah, you have to ban out sometimes, otherwise you first pick that, you're forced to take the Rakan. There's just so many things, and then there's 2 junglers that are viable right now, basically, in Jarvan and Sedge. So it's an interesting world with these bans.
Yeah. And
Kog'Maw's not really filtering into that top tier ban list, at least yet.
Gonna be seeing more Malzahar though, I imagine.
4-0?
4-0.
Malzahar's never lost. Good pick into Galio.
And yeah, it's pretty nice to just ult a tank and actually see his health bar move.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Mav Malari says, do you think Fnatic and C9 will stick with the same roster? If not, who do you think gets the boot? I could fully well see C9 sticking with the exact same roster. I think the only question mark is Impact going to keep playing? He's been around for a long time. So we'll see if he wants to keep playing. Probably does. He likes it on Cloud9. They're all buddies.
Yep.
Contracts ain't going nowhere. Jensen's not going anywhere. Smoothie and Sneaky probably not going anywhere. So I think Cloud9 might. Fnatic is... I think the question mark lies with Reckless, because he even commented saying, this might be my last Worlds. Does that mean he's just tired of professional League of Legends? I don't know.
Yeah, and same with Soaz, another guy who's been around since Season 1. Season 1, no one's playing in Season 1. They were playing in a basement for the World Championship. So, yeah, I mean, those are the main 2 guys questioned for Fnatic. Kind of Jez's as well. You don't really know what's going on with him. This guy who's played like 3 or 4 different roles. It's just so hard to speculate with. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes with these teams. But I mean, Fnatic really turned around their run in Worlds, so I don't think they should be disappointed in their performance with the way it ended in any way. And Cloud9, I mean, can't really upgrade their position anywhere. So unless someone's stepping away, same roster, sure.
Yeah, unless someone gets a nice spicy offer from one of those new teams.
Money, money, money.
Yeah, the money can change something. So you can be friends with everyone, but if you get a nice offer, see.
Best friend is money.
That's right. I do love money, Eric.
Yeah, I know.
Question. Do you think Tristan is going to be a heavy pick priority in the RNG SKT semifinal? I think it was a big win condition in the Misfits SKT as well as RNG Fnatic quarterfinal match. You mentioned it. You mentioned the win rate.
12-1.
Right. And that's pretty good last time I checked.
And there was one game in quarterfinals where it wasn't picked or banned. So I think you're going to see more of that. Maybe not the insane win percentage, but at least the 100% or very close to that pick ban rate. I mean, I feel like Trist is the best AD right now.
I mean, there's not much more you can ask for when you can buffer your jump to get away from people. You also have a pushback. The E-proc on someone's head does a ton of damage, and the range increases over time in these games. So, I mean, you have the range, you have the auto attack power up, great with Ardent Sensor, and all kinds of disengage.
And you can reset.
Yeah.
There's not really a negative you see with her. No. Maybe she's kind of weak early on in lane, but I mean, she's 2v2ing people. With this Janna shield, she's not that weak. So, yeah, she's probably the strongest AD, mainly because I don't know what's going on with Kalista. I don't even know if she's good. You don't even see her in any game. So, Tristan's going to be heavily contested in both semis, probably. It's
also funny, though, because Tristan has always been a decent pick into Kalista because you just all in that champ. Whereas Kalista needs that consistent auto attacks. Tristan's just like, all right, I'm going to jump on you. E-proc, 3 autos, alt, you're dead.
Hit him with the Goomba, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Going to be highly contested.
Very highly contested. Ali Donner says, do you think RNG is everything it takes to win Worlds? It's so tough because after what you saw from Samsung with that clean 3-0 over RNG, it's tough to say. SKT, you never know what to expect. But I mean, for RNG, they seem to have what it takes. I mean, they've looked pretty solid across the board. Shahu's been so impressive for not getting too much praise when he gets overlooked by Uzi in that bot lane. So I do like what they bring. One concern is MLXG. He's very active early on, but not always in a positive light. Sometimes he's overactive, misses on some ganks, kind of sometimes just gets caught out straight up. So he's the weakness that you got to kind of watch out for. And then that's my main concern about Royal. Whereas you look at some of the other teams, Samsung's ambition has just turned things around so much in this quarterfinals. SKT with Peanut, you never know which Peanut you're going to get, which blank you're going to get.
You never know when you're going to get Peanut at all.
Right, but I think RNG, when they're playing at that high level, with Uzi taking over these late games, with these hyper-scaling AD carries, I think they're good. I mean, you need a good AD carry to win Worlds this year, and they got a pretty good one.
Absolutely, and I mean, there's 4 pretty solid AD carries left now, but yeah, Uzi playing at a different level, and yeah, we talked about it before, SKT not looking that great. They legitimately looked like they were going to lose that Misfits series. Before it even got to that 5th game, I was like, they might actually lose, which is something you rarely feel with SKT. And so, yeah, if RNG continues to play as well as they have, I know they struggled a bit against Fnatic, but Fnatic did play a lot better and above the level that they were playing at the group stage. And that 4th game was pretty clean for the most part for RNG. And that 3rd game, one mistake away from basically sweeping Fnatic. So I think they have a chance at home. I think this is the best chance Uzi has to not play second fiddle to a Korean team at the end of Worlds.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping for some Chinese magic.
Chinese magic.
It'd be definitely a nice change of pace. Though another SKT Samsung final wouldn't be too bad because the last time they met in the finals,
it was quite a game, quite a series.
It was a hell of a series. Me Too asks, so who's better, NA or EU? And by how much EU? And if Misfits won again, SKT, would they have gone to the final? I mean, it's hard to not say EU after this match.
But NA won Rift Rivals.
Yeah, I mean, when they go head-to-head, you know what it is. But
listen,
yeah, you take it.
EU recently has performed much better at Worlds.
Sure.
MSI, it's kind of been even. G2 had a pretty good one. CLG had a pretty solid one. But it's EU, I think. Just if we're basing, the old recency bias. I mean,
yeah, the old
this
recency
world,
bias.
it's definitely EU. 2 teams getting out, putting out solid performances. G2 putting up a solid performance in a crazy group. C9, the only impressive NA team. 33% is not great compared to 100. So it's got to be EU right now, and I feel like past Worlds has really only hammered that point home. It seems to be NA gets hyped up going into Worlds, much like this year. It's like EU's going to be trash.
Yeah.
NA looks great. TSM free group, free. And then Worlds comes
and NA starts to choke.
NA leaves a bit of a
sour
taste after group stage. So, got to be EU.
It's hard not to. I mean, you just can't say it's NA. There's nothing that says NA except for
Rift Rivals.
The pointless Rift Rivals where Phoenix won was almost the best team at the tournament. So.
Better than C9.
Exactly.
See, P1 would have beaten World Elite.
They would have won the tournament with Mike Young, of course.
Yeah. Tournament would be over. They would have won so quickly.
Phoenix 1's international history is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Even though international
4-2.
is, yeah, that's 66%.
Ooh, that's pretty good.
That's pretty sick. Philip says, for which reason are you going to cheer in the semis? Do you want Korea to be defeated finally? Of course. You got to go for the underdogs. Down with those Korean overlords. Free the Chinese.
I mean, we're cheering for West usually, so we're always cheering for the underdogs. Yeah. In and outside of League of Legends. Just in life, you got to cheer for the underdogs.
Of course.
So yeah. And especially at home, you'd love to see a Chinese team win.
Yeah, and even Samsung I'm okay with. Just no more SKT, please.
You don't like a dynasty? A dynasty?
I don't know why you pronounce it that way.
Some people say dynasty. I don't like that.
Who says dynasty?
I don't know. Some people. I'll find someone who says it like that, and we'll bring them on for Wednesday and ask them why they say dynasty.
It'll be a very in-depth interview. Excuse me. Why do you say dynasty?
It'll be an extra 2-hour-long episode of just getting to the bottom of it.
It's an important topic. Someone's got to ask the important questions around here.
Me.
Mav says, surprise picks seem to work this world with the Leona Singed. Which semifinalists would be most likely to pick something unusual? That's a good question because so far these teams haven't really gone outside the box. It's been the Western teams, these second-tier teams, to kind of be like, you know what, we need to do something different. We need to surprise these teams with our unusual picks to get an upper hand, whereas teams like RNG, SKT, Samsung, they're just like, we can beat you straight up with what's good. We don't need to go surprise people. We can just beat you with the meta stuff. So I'm not sure there'll be too much surprise picks at all. It might be stuff like Malzahar, we saw Crown play it, and it worked out pretty well. So stuff like that, not so much surprise picks, but just overall good counter picks. I don't expect another Leona with Fervor.
Oh, you never know.
Who knows? Maybe someone will pull out Singed against World Elite because they could not deal with it.
Maybe SKT goes, wow, Leona Fervor, that's pretty nasty.
Who
Faker goes, I'm going to play that mid. Let's go.
Mid.
I could see Faker picking something a little oddball-y mid. I mean, maybe the Fizz, that's not that crazy, but I could see him going to some pick. I'm surprised we haven't seen Azir
it's been hovered
at this tournament. Hovered. Ooh, spooky. Spooky when they hover stuff. But I might see an Azir somewhere. I don't know if it'd be Faker to pull that out, but I got Faker probably play Fizz in a game. I can just see them picking a whole comp, Faker there for the last pick, and they're like, pick something crazy that they won't expect. Okay. Quinn. Uh-oh. That's not what you should have picked.
It's not the best one, no.
But it's a weird pick. I'm seeing Faker pick one.
Yeah. I mean, SKT usually brings out some crazy, not crazy, they don't, not usually either. But
I mean,
they're probably the most likely to bring out something different.
They've had Olaf mid,
yeah.
Aurelia mid, Master Yi mid, when he's not AP.
Who knows, man? But yeah, so far these teams haven't really gone outside the box too much.
No, they're pretty meta, and they're good at it.
I mean, nothing wrong with that. It's not exciting, but nothing wrong with that. If you have any more questions, send them in before we get the hell out of here. But for now, there's a couple more. Master Swag King says, do you think Immortals performed worse because they knew they weren't going to be part of the LCS? They did not know yet. They did not know yet. They were not informed. They pretty much found out at the same time everyone else did with that ESPN report where it was like, Immortals rejected. And then all the players on Twitter were like, question mark?
Yeah, even when that was released, they didn't even know. So
yeah,
they're like, well, I don't know if that's true.
So
they had no idea. If they did know, that would be a pretty big tilter, though. You're like, what's the point, man? We're not even in a league right now. Why fight for NA? What is life? You know, it'd be tough, but they had no idea. So it probably didn't have any implications.
No, they were just straight up underperforming, against the Marines and Fnatic.
Yeah, they were just bad.
That's it. No excuse.
No.
They were just bad.
Yep.
Daphne did not know she would need a new jersey for next season. So.
She hasn't picked one out yet either.
No.
She really, I don't know if she's taken a liking to that liquid one yet.
Maybe we'll see if they sign anyone decent.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Steph Curry jersey it is.
yeah. Bring in the Steph Curry jersey. Sergio Hernandez says, what are some OP teams with the list of free agents that you think could be made? Well, I mean, there's a couple of options. I mean, we mentioned Prey and Gorilla as potential things. I don't think that's overly likely.
Yeah.
But things like Levi joining TSM and just joining that roster as it sits, that'd be pretty interesting until they mold Levi into a useless jungler who
Ward
just sits
bot.
back and wards things.
Yeah.
So that's one, but we will definitely go through all these things. I feel like a team's just going to straight up pick up the Immortals roster and try to keep that team together.
Right, until someone comes up to the POB and says, hey, you want to play? Is there money? And then he goes, see you guys. I'm going to go make a lot more money somewhere else. So they might get broken up. It's hard to get a whole roster together. But I mean, a guy we haven't really talked about, well, we've talked about him, is Forgiven.
Yeah.
He said he's open to NA, and especially with it franchising like this, why would you want to go back to EU, which looks like it's in shambles? So someone will pick up Forgiven, I think, for sure.
I mean, yeah, I'd be surprised not to see Forgiven in the NALCS next year, to be frank, because all these new teams, rosters coming in completely empty, just completely barren. 4 teams brand new, don't have anyone on their team. Forgiven's a pretty good start to a roster. You pick probably a top 3 AD carry in North America right away with the potential to be the best.
Yeah.
I mean, when he was laning back in the day, the guy would always come out with a huge CS lead and then just take over.
It's a bit of a tragedy that he's not playing at this Worlds tournament with this AD carry-centric meta. Just throw shields on him, carry the game, because he would probably excel.
Yeah, but you can't play Lucian AD carry in this meta. So.
Oh, he'll play Lucian. He'll play Graves.
Yeah,
old Graves. He's playing in some old 3 seasons ago. But there are plenty of super teams you could come up with. We'll flesh out a whole list and come up with some crazy ones.
We sure will. For Ronson, if G2 moves to NA, which players will they keep? They're not moving to NA. They did not get accepted, so no point, I guess, in discussing. They're going to probably...
They would have kept Perks.
They would have kept Perks and whatnot, but yeah, they're not moving. 10 teams are decided.
EU is alive.
Yeah,
G2 had left that whole league.
Dead.
Kaputs. Kaputs or kaput? Is there a plural on that?
I think there's like a kaputs. Is it legit a Z?
I don't know.
I don't think anyone's ever said it or like used it in an essay or something.
I didn't say I'd use it in an essay.
You do.
But
you do have to use it in an essay.
I did.
Please use this in a sentence.
No, in an essay.
In an essay. If you don't use this in the essay, you get a 0.
Well, I'm only looking for that one line.
There's no Z or S, apparently. Just kaput. That's kaput. I think it's like more of an insult. If you call someone a kaputs or something, I don't know, whatever.
You threw an S on there when you said it there. Come on, man.
Whatever. Andrew asks, imagine if TSM actually showed up in groups, it would have been NA versus NA. Which team would you guys take it? Well, they would have had to finish first in that group, first of all, over World Elite, which...
I don't think that's happening. So
and
they
then
would
it wouldn't
have been playing
NA versus NA.
SKT, and they would have got swept. Because they don't adapt or play anything interesting, they would have just played like SKT and gotten destroyed.
Yeah, they would have gone for their late game team fight against SKT and lost late game team fights against SKT. Whereas Misfits were like, let's try something new.
So it was much more exciting that it was Misfits, actually.
Yeah, it definitely was. All right, Eric, wrap her up.
Thank you very much for the questions. A lot of good ones. Quarterfinals, the most exciting and interesting quarterfinals that I've seen in a while. Usually they're kind of they're the worst part of Worlds.
Usually, not this time.
Not this time. They're very exciting. Better than the group stage, I'd say. Semifinals should still be interesting. SKT doesn't look that strong. RNG's on the up and up. They're at home. Samsung 3-0 in Longzhou. Are they actually the best Korean team at this tournament? They're still going to be very interesting.
A lot of questions.
And the perfect pick'em is still alive.
Yeah, and they've got SKT World Elite Finals.
SKT winning. Boring. But we'll see if that pick'em can stay alive. We'll be back on Wednesday to break down these semifinals more and get into the nitty-gritty. Maybe talk about franchising a little bit more. If there's any news, which you never know what's going on in that world right now. But we'll be back tomorrow at 2 p.m.
Wednesday.
Tomorrow, Wednesday. On Wednesday, not tomorrow. We'll be back Wednesday at 2 p.m.
There you go.
Wednesday at 2 p.m.
Wednesday.
We'll see you guys then. Eric Kummel, Matt Hempstead, thank you very much for watching.